On the playground, in the community, in the office, nobody likes a bully. But that's exactly who Ron DeSantis is. Bullying our kids, bullying the LGBTQ community, and bullying Floridians seeking abortion care. We've seen bullies like Ron before. We're not afraid, and we're fighting back.
With Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis attacking the LGBTQ community, women's rights, and history itself, many young people have reacted by getting more involved in politics. My next two guests became politically active following mass shootings. Both are survivors of gun violence in Florida. And I am joined now by Florida congressional candidate Maxwell Frost and Brandon Wolf, survivor of the Pulse nightclub shooting and the press secretary for Equality Florida. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
I do want to start with you, Brandon, because I just played the ad that Equality Florida is running. This issue of making it illegal, unlawful for people to just declare themselves and who they are in schools, it's frightening. It's now spawned a lawsuit. You do have some parents and teachers that are now filing a lawsuit. It's hard to believe that a law like that exists in America, right? Can you talk about the impacts that it's had so far?
Yeah, it's heartbreaking that we're in 2022, not 1950, talking about whether or not LGBTQ people can be themselves in this state and in this country. Listen, this community knows full well what happens when we allow hatred and bigotry like what Ron DeSantis has displayed to fester and to grow. It was 6.5 years ago that a man filled with that same hate and bigotry charged into Pulse nightclub, an LGBTQ safe space, opened fire and killed 49 people, 49 of our friends, of our family members. That's what happens when we allow that hate to fester. We're watching it happen across the state. Books are being banned with LGBTQ characters. Rainbow safe space stickers are being peeled off of classroom windows. Miami-Dade County schools decided to reject LGBTQ History Month this year because they said that it was in conflict with the law. And all of that is weighing heavily on teachers who are just trying to teach, on kids who are just trying to be themselves, and on families who deserve to be respected just like everyone else.
You know, and Maxwell, meanwhile, the place where you should be the safest in school, right? If you're not fearful that your teacher will get fired or that you as a teacher will get fired because you are LGBTQ, you also have to worry about school shootings. Yeah. We just saw the sentencing, a life sentence for the Parkland school shooter. The parents were very upset about it. They thought the death penalty was appropriate. That's not what wound up happening. Do you think that, I mean, Florida's done more than Texas to try to, beat back gun violence. But do you think that the state has done enough under this governor?
No, they haven't. And what we know to be true is that just a few months ago, we found out that the leading cause of death for children went from automobile accidents to guns. I mean, our children are literally on the front lines of this national tragedy, and our governor has done nothing to solve it. And what we know is that he is scapegoating the most vulnerable communities due to his failures. He hasn't been able to do anything on affordable housing, nothing on gun violence, nothing on ensuring that our people have the resources they need. And so what he's saying is it's the fault of our queer community, the LGBTQ plus community. It's the fault of Black folks. It's the fault of Latinos. And we know, we see through it. We lose 100 people a day due to gun violence. And I know sometimes we can get lost in the numbers because we see a mass shooting almost every day on Twitter. But behind every number, there's a person. Yeah. There's a story. There's a family. And we can't lose sight of that.
And, you know, and I'm glad that Pulse was mentioned here, obviously, because whenever we bring you on, you know, you represent the survivors, but also the dead. Like, you represent your friends that you lost. And that happened in this community. We are here in Orlando, and that would be the district that you would represent. So I want both of you just to talk for a moment about what you think should be done federally. We've seen President Biden take some steps, more than we've seen in like 30 years. Right. But what else do you think should be done? I'll start with you. What would you want to do in Congress to do more to stop gun violence?
Well, we know there's a common sense measure that most Americans are for, that most Republicans are for, that most NRA members are for, and that's universal background checks to make sure that guns don't fall in the wrong hands. That's not some radical thing. That's ensuring that people have a background check before they're given a weapon. And I think that is something that we can pass. Bipartisan support shouldn't just mean what the NRA is for. Yeah. It should mean what the people what the people want. And what we know is that people want to end this senseless violence.
And what would you want to see done? What do you think should be done federally?
Yeah, well, I agree with Maxwell. Listen, let's do what people want. Let's do what the majority of Americans want. Let's start with, addressing our Swiss cheese approach to background checks. Let's close the loopholes that exist in the system. Let's institute a national red flag or extreme risk protection order to ensure that we can get guns out of the hands of people who are a danger to themselves or others. And yes, I fundamentally believe, because I've come face to face with the muzzle of an assault weapon, that assault weapons and high-capacity magazines have no place on our streets, and they need to be off.
Yeah. The other thing where we started was talking about the cruelty factor in Republican politics, to be fair, be honest right now, right? And the more cruelty, actually, the more popularity Ron DeSantis has been able to achieve. And so I wonder, Brandon, for you, for the communities that are at risk, for LGBTQ voters, for young voters, for people who are afraid to send their kid to fourth grade, are you worried that the reaction will be to retreat rather than to vote? And how can we turn that around and get young people to vote?
That's always the fear, right? And that's the intent of the cruel policies. They're designed to scare us back into the closet, to erase us from communities. And honestly, DeSantis' strategy is similar to the right-wing strategy across this country, which is to make things so chaotic, so tempestuous, so overwhelming that people feel like there is no hope in fighting back. But I'm here to tell people our only hope is to fight back.
Yeah.
Throughout history, we have done the most good work when we've been unafraid, unapologetic, when we've stood up to bullies like you saw in that ad, and we said, we're not going to take it. We get to write what happens next in this country. We are the people in a democracy. We get to decide what happens next, and that starts by showing up next week.
And Maxwell, I have to point out another thing that's happening in this state in particular. And you grew up in a Cuban-American home, speaking Spanish daily, which I wish I could do. I wish I could be fluent in Spanish. I'm so mad at myself. But there is a lot of disinformation on in-language radio that Spanish speakers are getting piped in. And it's moving a lot of voters. You're seeing some movement that people are believing that Democrats are all communists or whatever else is being said. Is there something that Democrats should be doing, that the media should be doing, that the public should be doing? Because disinformation, we know, is dangerous. We saw what happened to Paul Pelosi.
Yeah. I mean, and what we know to be true is there's a long history of Republicans using Spanish radio to work to fuel disinformation in places like South Florida. My mom, my aunt, and my grandma came here from Cuba in the late 1960s. My mom and aunt are in the audience right now.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Hang on now. Okay, they're beautiful.
But I remember my mom telling me about how that disinformation was there when she came here.
Yeah.
And so this has been their plan. And they think because people don't know English, that for some reason they're more likely to believe it. And so what we have to do as Democrats is combat it by ensuring that we're spending in those areas and spending with Spanish language media and not giving up on the voters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that spending piece is important because I think people, you show your values by where you're willing to spend your money.
Exactly.
And I think for Democrats, having worked a little bit in campaigns, sometimes spending on ethnic media goes by the wayside. And then in the end, they're running in the churches being like, can I get on the pulpit because I need to get these voters back? I want to show something to our audience here. Let me see can you zoom in on this, Downtown Sterling Brown, my director? I don't know if you can zoom in. That's his name, Downtown Sterling Brown. So this is a beautiful, beautiful thing. You got it. Okay, beautiful. That I just got from my friend Brandon. And I want you to explain what it is and who made it.
Yeah, so our dear friend Ben Johansson made you an Orlando ribbon. Yes, we love Ben. And it stands for a lot of things, but I just want to address, for me, what's at the core of it. Yeah. People know about Florida. Unfortunately, they know a lot about the anti-LGBTQ agenda of Ron DeSantis. They know a lot about Don't Say Gay. This pin not only stands for the 49 people who were stolen from us at Pulse, it helps us remember. It's also a proud declaration that here in Orlando, in this community that's been touched by hate, we proudly say gay. We proudly say trans. We proudly say queer, and we're not going anywhere. So I hope you wear it with pride.
I absolutely will. Thank you very much. Please thank the wonderful person who made it. I'm going to not only wear it, but I'm going to make sure it's on the Instagram. It's going to get on the
I love that.
We're going to get it onto the gram. Maxwell Frost, Brandon Wolf, two incredible young activists. Give them another hand. Incredible. And Maxwell about to be a congressman, so you need to know. Thank y'all very much. Tonight's Democracy Defender joins us next on the other side of the break. The ReidOut Roadshow, live